We are gearing up for When We Were Young and so excited for it. And of course, there's just so many things to talk about when it comes to When We Were Young.
Yeah.
But we are really going to narrow down probably, we say this a lot, our hardest list.
Yeah, 100%.
Yet. And it is going to be the top 8 albums we're most excited to see at When We Were Young Fest. I'm Matt Batiste.
I'm TJ, your co-host as always. Yes, so excited for When We Were Young. I feel like we've talked about it in bits and pieces throughout several episodes that we've already done thus far since starting this whole thing, but you got your confirmation. We're good to go. We're going to be there. If you see us there, come say hi. But now we're going to count down the albums we're most excited to hear.
Yeah, I think that was like the biggest thing too about in the past. We've mentioned it, but I wasn't really for sure. I didn't really know if I was going to.
You didn't want to fully commit because you didn't know if you're.
And it wasn't even like if we're going to get access. It was like, oh, okay, wedding and a bunch of other plans that have happened this year. So it's kind of cool to cap off the year by knowing that we're going. So the flights are booked, hotel is booked. And now it's just a matter of what albums are going to have time conflicts and which ones are we going to prioritize.
I am dreading the overlap of this festival because there's like 20, 25 albums on this that I'm super excited to hear. And realistically, you're only going to get probably 10 to 12 in a day, given like other experiences of When We Were Young and Sick New World. So we're going to have to make some decisions.
And I'll tell you what, for honorable mentions on this episode, we'll just start that off now. Literally all of them. Yeah. Every single one.
If it didn't make the list, it's an honorable mention immediately.
I still want to go and see it, even if we hadn't even talked about it. I want to go see every single one on this one.
Yeah, there's some hardcore honorable mentions where like I left it off because I've already heard this album in full or things like that, but it's so stacked. I don't know how like they're only doing 2 days of this, because for me, this is a dream lineup.
Yeah, I'm going to preface this with I left a pretty big headliner, like a headliner off of my list.
Oh, geez. Oh, I did too.
Yeah. And we could talk a little bit why after, but I mean, there's going to be some things that didn't make the list where people are probably going to be like, how are you not prioritizing that? But
I have justifications for why, but
and it's not even like that we're not going to go to that show or that stage.
That band we're definitely going to catch at some point. It's just
maybe they're our 9th or our 10th, or we're going to catch it at the same time. Like it's just, these are the top albums. It's essentially going to be like the top albums that are most impactful.
I think there was 10 albums at least on this list that are in like my top 25 of all time.
Yeah.
So just even narrowing that down to 8 was like, well, what are the biggest records that I want to hear for my own personal, I'm going to cry and yell.
Yeah,
it's pretty much what this list is.
When it came to like this year's When We Were Young as well, like it was so hard for me to even justify missing.
Yeah,
because there was a part of me that was like, I might just skip out on this year because I've spent a lot of money with the wedding and yada yada yada. That it's just I might just skip out on it and go next year. But because they're doing albums and there's so many albums that you're never going to be able to hear in full ever again, this truly does feel like a once in a lifetime experience that it was like, nah, I need to do it.
100%. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
So let's get into the list. And I'm going to start off with number 8 being 3031.
What? Yeah, let's go.
And the reason why is because
such a fun record.
It was so fun listening to this album in high school. It was like one of those, it's a scene kid staple.
It is, yeah.
It really is. And like the last time that I saw 303 in concert was at Warped Tour in 2008.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I
saw them on the last Warped Tour, and they pretty much played this entire record as part of their set. So
it's
like
their record, like it's the record, right?
It didn't make my list for that reason, but it's such a good record, and I'm hoping no other conflicts because I will 100% be there.
It's going to be a fun one. This is like, one of the earlier ones, most likely. Like I'm thinking gates open at noon, like they're on at 1 or 2 and you go and you catch them in the sun.
I could actually see them either like popping off the main stage, like setting off the main stage as like the first or second band, or like a middle of the day on like whatever the third stage is going to be.
I just picture people walking in and running to 303 to like dance.
The sun is still high in the sky and it's just a party. Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I envision. We'll see what the planners envision, but I also feel like I'm never going to see 303 again, and I'm never going to see that album from start to finish again.
Yeah.
So this is my opportunity to go and kind of really take in the nostalgia of the Nostalgia Festival, right?
True.
So that's my number 8.
My number 8 is definitely going to be higher on your list. It might be your number 1, actually, in Love and Death.
Okay.
Used. Just because.
That low, huh?
Yeah, it's just, there's so many good records. It's so tough to pick 8. Like the fact that this is at 8 is saying something.
Yeah. And I'm not even going to give you shit for it because I already know that it was so hard for me to build my top 8 list.
Yeah.
So it's like the 8th spot doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst. In fact, it already made that top echelon of albums because the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th pick, all of those are top.
They're all
albums.
still great. I know.
And they could be number 1s in other lists that we could potentially make later on in the future.
My problem with this album is I'm super hyped for the first half of it, but then I was like, oh, I could leave, but then I'm a fake. I'm like, I have to hear I'm a fake, and that's at the end. So I'm like, shit, I have to stay for the whole thing, which I mean, have to stay for the whole thing. It's a great record, but in terms of like, I know I'm probably gonna have to leave some of these sets like halfway between or like, you know, something. So I was planning for that one, but not so much now. Also, could potentially hear Under Pressure with Gerard Way because Mike M's going to be there.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think that they're going to play that?
It would be on this like a huge throwback because they did it like back in the day, right? So I feel like if this is the Nostalgia Fest and you're going to bring out all these old bangers, now's the time.
Here's the thing. From what I understand, there was a falling out between the band, and I don't know if they're talking and if they're good now, but if there were any time to do it, it would be now.
Yeah.
Because When We Were Young is so notorious for bringing out surprise guests at the festival.
True.
Like last year, Avril Lavigne came out. She wasn't even on the bill.
I missed that.
Tony Hawk came out with Goldfinger, right?
Yeah.
Streetlight Manifesto came out on day 2 with Goldfinger, and they're broken up too. So, like, you know, so many things can possibly happen at When We Were Young that it wouldn't really surprise me if he came out for at least one of the 2 days.
Yeah. Well, and like another one that happened too was the we had Kellen Quinn come out with Pierce the Veil to do King for a Day, which could also happen at this one.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned it now because I didn't put Clyde with the Sky on my list. I don't know if you did either, but something also to look forward to.
Yeah, there's just too many on.
I know.
Number 7 for me, I put Taking Back Sunday, Tell All Your Friends.
Okay.
And I feel like a lot of people are
the late
like,
addition to the festival.
Yeah, but like a lot of people I think are going to, I'm glad that they did it because I do want to go and prioritize that album.
Yeah.
But I really think that a lot of people will say, Matt, like you make so much Taking Back Sunday content and you love Taking Back Sunday. How's that so low? And the only reason why it's so low is 1, I haven't seen them since I was a teenager. And 2, like there's a little part of me that's hesitant in terms of like how good are they going to be live? Because I think we've
heard the rumors. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I haven't confirmed that and I'm not denying it either. But also, it's weird because I feel like Adam Lazara like got his groove back from the recent videos that I've seen with this last album that they put out. I really like this album. I've seen clips of them performing live and they actually sounded good. So I don't know what happened, but clearly there was like a portion in time that they weren't very good live. And it kind of seems like they've got their groove back. So I'm really hoping for this fest. And for this album, they've got their groove back, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to prioritize that album because from start to finish, it's a banger album. It's one of my favorite albums. So it's going to be there, but it's low on my list because there maybe is a little bit of that like
hesitation. Hesitation. That makes sense.
What do you have at number 7?
Number 7 for me is Constellations, the sophomore record from August Burns Red. I've seen August Burns Red 4 or 5 times live now. They always kill it, but I've never heard this album in full. It's my favorite August Burns Red album. It was an easy pick.
I don't have that one on my list.
I kind of figured.
That's definitely a TJ album.
Yeah, this one's going to be tough because I imagine they're going to put some pinnacle heavy records up against some pinnacle emo records at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have to make some tough decisions. And I know it's going to happen, but I'm hoping it's not this one.
I really just want to make sure that we're going to get both days because I'd like to be able to get that. Like when you go both days, like I did last year, you get to lose half of your conflicts, right? Because it's like one day, like last year I was torn between The Offspring and Thrice. And so day 1, I saw Thrice. Day 2, I saw The Offspring.
Perfect.
And you get rid of all of your time conflict. So I'm really hoping to be able to do that and get rid of all that. But if you're only going for one day, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions in that moment.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, Sick New World basically had to make all those decisions because there was only one day, and it was so tough. So yeah, 2 days. Let's go.
Number 6, I have Coheed Good Apollo. And the reason why I have that one is that was another nostalgic album for me. I loved Coheed back in the day.
Yeah, you've said that before.
And I remember like learning how to play guitar, and I had multiple different guitar teachers back in the day. And every single time they asked me like, okay, like give me a song that you want to learn, I'll learn it and teach it to you. I always picked Coheed. And it always blew every single teacher out of the water because they were all like, older classic rock guys, right? Like they want to teach me AC/DC and Metallica and Nirvana and that kind of stuff. And like, I liked all that stuff. I learned how to play all those songs. But at that age, I was kind of like, oh no, Coheed's cool. And listen to that guitar.
Yeah.
And every single guitar teacher had the exact same reaction. It was, man, this guy's voice sucks. He sounds like a girl, but that guitar playing, he shreds. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I like
They're a
his
guitar
voice.
Band for sure.
Yeah. But it's like, I personally loved Claudio's voice, and I still do. Like, I think that he has one of the best voices, and he has such crazy range. But it is an acquired taste because it's that higher pitched, and it's different, right? Like a lot of those emo bands and post-hardcore bands had that higher pitched, sound to them. Even like Anthony Green, Claudio from Coheed, like all these bands, they had that higher pitch, but the guitar shred, and it always blew everyone away. And Coheed was one of those bands for me. And I haven't seen them since Warped Tour in 06 or 07, and I think that we actually had to leave that set halfway because one of our parents came to pick us up, and Coheed was the headlining band.
Oh, no way.
So we saw half of their set and then had to run to catch our ride. And I will never forget missing half a Coheed set and how upset I was. So
time to get some redemption, I guess.
Exactly. So it's redemption for Coheed on that one.
My number 6, you're probably going to say this is a little low on my list, but it's They're Only Chasing Safety.
I'm surprised that's not your number 1.
Well, it's not my number 1, and it's not higher because I already have tickets to see them when they're here in December. Playing the same album in full.
Okay, so see, that's another thing too, is there's other artists and bands that aren't on my list because I've already seen the album in full, or I've seen them so many times.
Silverstein, Discovering the Waterfront did not make my list because I've already seen that album twice in full.
And The Wonder Years, The Greatest Generation didn't make my list, even though that's
really?
It's one of my favorite albums. I've seen.
I assumed that would be. Oh wow! I'm so surprised.
It didn't make my list because it's my favorite album by them. They're one of my favorite bands to see live and favorite bands in general. But I saw the album already from start to finish in Toronto last year. Okay. I went crazy in that pit. I lost my voice. They're like I said, they're one of the best live bands. And if you're thinking about choosing to see The Wonder Years, The Greatest Generation over another album, and you haven't seen that album in full, choose The Wonder Years 1,000%. Mm-hmm. If there's no conflict, I'm going to see The Wonder Years again.
Okay.
But if there's, and actually I'm going with my brother, and he's dying to see The Wonder Years, Greatest Generation, so we might just very well
split up or something
go and figure something out, because I know he's going to want to see that album in full. And so I really hope there's no conflicts and we could just go and see it.
Yeah, I assumed your 1 and 2 were going to be in Love and Death in that one, so that was so shocking to me.
I saw it last year, and I've seen them I
didn't know it was that album in full. So.
2 years, so and there's so many bands that I haven't seen, or albums I haven't seen, or haven't seen in like 20 years. That's kind of what I'm going to be prioritizing, is like what will I never be able to see again, and what haven't I seen?
Totally. So I mean, that's why I'm still excited to see They're Only Chasing Safety. If there's nobody else, I'm going to see it in full.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go again 2 weeks later when they're here.
Yeah.
Because that album is phenomenal.
But so that's an honorable mention for me. But my number 5 is Movements Feel Something.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so I really, really like Movements. I saw them at the last when we were young. I went to their set and I saw a couple of their hits, and I saw about half of their set based off of time and moving around. I missed them the last time they came to Toronto, and I really like their new album. There's nothing against anything else that they've done outside of Feel Something, but that album to me,
pinnacle.
It's a perfect 12 out of 10 emo record.
Yeah.
And to see it from start to finish, that's one of those things where maybe if they toured this, I wouldn't prioritize it as much if I saw it, say, at like the Opera House last year or something. But I need to see this album from start to finish because I need to see those songs that they wouldn't otherwise play at a show.
That was my thing with this album too. I think I'd rather see it in like a small venue.
It's
not
true.
a massive festival. I don't know. There's like a vibe to that record that I think doesn't really suit a massive festival, but still be excited to hear.
I just think, when else am I going to be able to hear that album? From
if they don't
start
do it
to
anywhere
finish?
else, then now's is your chance, right?
So that's why I put it there, because it is like a top. If we made top 8 emo records of all time, like across multiple generations, I still feel like that album fits and makes it to a top list. That and Turnover's Peripheral Vision,
Yeah.
I think, are 2 albums that belong on a top 10 emo albums of all time. And it's better than a lot of 2000s emo records. So yeah, so Movements is like an all-time emo record. So that's why I have it where I have it.
Totally.
What do you have at number 5?
Number 5 for me, you're definitely not going to have this, but this is the Devil Wears Prada's Plagues, because they had to relearn how to play this album because they've never played it in full and they never will again. So this is like the one and only time you're ever going to hear this. And it's not that I love the record. It's just the exclusivity, and like there are some banger songs, and just knowing that you're never going to hear it again. So
I think that's why this year's When We Were Young is so important, and there's such a pull for me to make sure that I'm there. It's that exclusivity that you're never going to get this ever again.
For sure. They pretty much said, like, we don't like this record, so we're not going to play it.
Which is crazy because, like, I love that record too. So, like, I would definitely be there if there were no conflicts. Like, that's definitely a record that I would go to.
Yeah.
It didn't make my top 8.
I figured.
Not a top 8 one for me, but 100%, like, I can see it being a TJ top 8.
Yipper, that's my 5.
Number 4 is where I put probably your number 1. That's where I put Black Parade.
Okay.
Yeah. We've had this discussion. I'm more of a 3 Cheers guy. I think if 3 Cheers was there, I'd probably actually have it higher.
Would it be 1?
No.
Okay.
No. There's too many albums that, like, you know what my number 1's going to be, and I think anyone that's been listening to this podcast can know what my number 1's going to be.
Yeah, they're only chasing safety. I know it.
but you know, I think 3 Cheers would have pushed it a little bit further. But with that being said, I am still excited for this album because you know there's going to be no conflicts. This is going to be a headline. It's either going to be the last band or the second last band. I personally think it's going to be the last band. Once again, the exclusivity versus Fall Out Boy, where anyone can go see Fall Out Boy at any time. But I've also never seen the Black Parade perform live before. Like, I saw My Chem like 3 times in the 2000s, and it was all 3 Cheers and pre-3 Cheers. So I never actually got to see a lot of the songs from the Black Parade live. So I am excited to see the Black Parade, but it's not higher than my other 3.
I mean, that makes sense. We're going to talk about the Black Parade a little later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're going to go in full garb, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Parade outfit.
Sweating with the full.
No, I can't do it with the heat, man. There's no way. My number 4 is Let's Cheers to This, Sleeping with Sirens.
Okay.
Which I think is an underrated pick. This is my favorite Sleeping with Sirens record. I know it's one of Amy's faves too, so we're definitely going to have to check it out. They've like Sleeping with Sirens has always had more of a pull over Pierce the Veil for me. So in picking between those 2 bands, because they're often compared to each other, I go Let's Cheers to This. Yeah, it's a good.
Sleeping with Sirens and Pierce the Veil are 2 bands that I got into a little bit later, but that's also because they were kind of those like 2010s type of era. And by that point, I was just in a different, I guess, stage, or I wasn't listening. Like, I missed a lot of the 2010s. Because I wasn't as active and like looking for bands. But you know, Sleeping with Sirens was like a catch-up band for me, and they're incredible. So like definitely if they're on and there's no conflicts, I'll definitely be there.
I mean, there's some bangers on this record. A trophy father's trophy son, banger. All My Heart, also low-key a banger, but yeah, whole record is awesome. So number 4.
Number 3 for me is where I put Homesick.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be, actually, may as well talk about it because I'm going to switch my 2 and 3 and put Homesick at 3 as well.
Yeah. And Homesick for me is like, it's a perfect 10 out of 10 album. We've had this conversation in the past with Dakota as a guest as well. Like me and Dakota are both, for those who have heart, people when it comes to their albums, if they had For Those Who Have Heart. I might even just put that album at number 1 because there are so many songs for those who have heart that I've never seen live or I haven't seen live in forever. With Homesick, we saw them earlier this year.
Yeah.
We're probably going to see them later this year as well on a little road trip to London, Ontario.
Hey.
So a couple of times in a year, maybe 3 times in a year, you know, they kind of get pushed down because of that, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I was thinking about, originally they were my number 2. And I was like, if my second and third albums were at the same time, I'd probably go to my third album just because we've seen A Day to Remember already this year, and we're going to see them again later this year.
I really think like our entire theme of this whole episode is basically like exclusivity is going to win this year. Because there's just
who are you not likely to hear from again for a while?
And who can you go and see when they stop in your city next week?
Yeah.
You know, A Day to Remember is one of those bands that they've toured so much in the last 2 years.
And when they tour, they play like 2/3 of this record live anyways. So to get a couple of those extra bangers, obviously I'm going to go if there's no conflicts. It's a 10 out of 10 perfect record. My 3, 2, and 1, I consider 10 out of 10 albums can't miss. But just because we're seeing them already, I'll put a little lower.
I think I also prioritized Homesick on this one too, because I think the main difference between going to see them and them playing 2/3 of the album versus going to see the whole album from start to finish is this is one of those albums that is very cohesive.
Yeah.
So to hear it in the right order, like that has its own sort of appeal to me as well. And that's why I have it so high.
That's a very fair point.
Your number 2 is Chiodos.
Oh, I thought that would be your number 1. To be honest.
No, there's an exclusivity there with that one. I haven't seen Chiodos since 2007 or 8. I ditched my semi-formal date to go to the Chiodos concert.
Hell yeah.
I got tickets last minute and I'm like, screw semi-formal later. I was very, very bad in high school. And yeah, ditched her to go to the concert. We didn't stay together, so I think
I wonder why.
So I'm pumped to see Chiodos again after all this time, and one of my favorite records. We've had last week. I put this as my number 1 post-hardcore record. So.
Yeah, because when you said, "Oh, you should be able to guess my number 1" after the ones we talked about, I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Chiodos." So now I'm like, "What the hell is it?" I guess we'll find out.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Life's Not Out to Get You by Neck Deep, which is a perfect pop punk record. I think it's going to be so fun to hear live in like the Vegas sun's beaming down on you setting. Cause it's a summer album. It's my favorite pop punk record of the 2010s, like all of modern pop punk. This is my favorite record. You can't beat it.
No, I agree with everything you said.
And it didn't even make your list.
And I know, but here's the thing. I literally thought about that and I'm like, oh, but where would I put it? Like the thing is I really don't even know what the thing is. I've been listening to this album so much. I was listening to this album on the way here.
Damn.
Like I've been listening to this album so much. It's going to be prioritized. It's just, I don't know. There's more exclusivity once again with these other albums.
That's like, crazy. You will pick 303's Want over Life's Not Out to Get You.
When else is 303 going to tour?
I know. I'm just fucking.
And Neck Deep might come to Neck Deep is coming to Toronto.
I have tickets already.
First, so it's like I can literally go see 303 over Neck Deep, and then a week after coming home from when we were young, go and see Neck Deep in an intimate venue. So,
but
it's like,
they're not playing Life's Not Out to Get You in full.
Yeah, but they're gonna play December. They're gonna play Gold Steps. Like they're gonna play the hits. You know what I mean?
Can't kick up the roots.
So Polymah. So that's the hard part with me, and that was kind of where once again exclusivity, baby.
Yeah. My thing with that was I'm gonna hear Life's Not Out to Get You in full, and then I've also loved their new record from this year. So it's like, I have to get tickets to their tour too, so I can hear some of those songs live.
Yeah. It should be on my list. It should be higher on my list, but this is
strong, like I said, honorable mention.
We started it out by saying this is going to be the hardest list that we've ever made. Yeah. And like, what are the honorable mentions? All of them. If it didn't make my list, it's number 9. They're all tied for number 9.
Yeah, pretty much.
Every album on this festival is tied for number 9.
There were some distinct honorable mentions, like Discovering the Waterfront was an easy one just because I've seen it live already. Also, Atreyu's The Curse would have made my list, but they don't have their original Screamer, so I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. So we'll see about going to see that one live. Any specific honorable mentions for you? You want to jump in your number one?
Yeah, I'll go over the ones that I really want to go and see that didn't make my list. Of course, Dashboard Confessional, Jimmy Eat World, which we saw recently.
Yeah.
Newfound Glory. Motion City Soundtrack is a big one. Commit This to Memory is the album that I love from them. Saw them at When We Were Young last year, but to hear them play Commit This to Memory, like that's the album, right?
Sure.
Of course, Neck Deep. Story of the Year would be a good one. Mom Jean's Best Buds is a huge honorable mention for me.
Yeah, I think you've said multiple times you're a Best Buds guy.
No, I'm a Sweet Tooth guy, where most people are Best Buds, but Best Buds has that reputation for a reason. It's still, once again, like that's the Mom Jean's album. So 100% I'm going to see that album. Like last year I prioritized the Front Bottoms, and I don't think
true.
Like that was where like it was more so like the Gen Z and like the younger crowd that was there, while everyone else, I think they were seeing like Good Charlotte. And I
definitely went and saw Good Charlotte.
Yeah, and I went to go see the Front Bottoms over Good Charlotte. So it's like there's a good chance I might even be prioritizing Mom Jeans over a Nostalgia Act, depending on the Nostalgia Act.
Yeah,
like truthfully, Simple Plan. If Simple Plan is the conflict with Mom Jeans, I'm going to see Mom Jeans because I saw Simple Plan at When We Were Young last year, and I saw them at Bud Stage this year.
I was gonna say they didn't make my list, but they do put on a phenomenal show, so that one was tough to leave off as well. No Pads in Full is,
dude. I want to go and see Millionaires because I low key love Millionaires, and I love Melissa, so that's an honorable mention. What else do we have here? Like Hawthorne Heights is playing in Silence in Black and White. Like that's a huge one.
Honestly, there's so many records that I just forget are on this.
Thursday Full Collapse. Like that made my top 8 post-hardcore records last week.
Yeah. Census Fail Still Searching was on my list last week, and it's a phenomenal record too.
The Wonder Years we talked about. Mayday Parade, A Lesson in Romantics.
Yeah.
They didn't play a few songs from that album at All Your Friends Fest that I was a little bit upset for. So
they didn't play Miserable Best, right?
That's the main one that I was like, what the heck? And every time he kept on talking about like, I was like, this one's a sad one. This is our saddest song. And I was like,
didn't get it.
You know?
Here's a question for you. I posted this on Instagram the other day, got some interesting responses. If you could add one record to this list to make it an 11 out of 10, what one record would you add?
Don't do this to me. I don't even know. Like, I'm thinking the first few albums that kind of come to mind, and like, but the thing is, there's just so many. My brain just starts rattling off albums, right? Like Blink-182, for me, it would be their Untitled, but I know most people will pick Enema. I mentioned Turnover's Peripheral Vision earlier, if for like a little bit less of the nostalgia factor. Here's the thing though, like Blink played last year as the headliner. So like
they wouldn't be called back for
I don't think so. Hot Mulligan's not on it this year. They were on it last year, and I didn't prioritize them because I've seen them so many times in the last few years, to be honest. I'm like looking through my playlist now to see like what I would put in here.
Okay, while you think about it, I'll give you my 2.
Ooh.
Okay, go on.
Can we technically get Boxcar Racer back together and put Boxcar on here? Because 1,000%.
Whatever you want.
Dude, if Boxcar Racer ever came back, like got back together and they were playing that album in full, like I'm spending $500 to go and see that.
Okay.
Like, or if we could get Modern Baseball back together, You're Gonna Miss It All, like that's going on there. It makes it a 12 out of 10 festival, you know?
Fair.
What are yours?
My 2 were just to add some more metalcore into the mix. I would love to hear Bring Me the Horizon Sempiternal in full.
Yes.
Or now that Linkin Park is back, Hybrid Theory in full.
Yeah, and nothing against the new singer or anything. Like
it wouldn't be the same.
Like the new song.
Yeah.
And I would go and see Linkin Park if they came to Toronto.
Oh,
but I don't think it's going to hit the same on this fest as if Chester were around.
Okay, that's what I thought. Watching their live stream when they came back, I literally had tears in my eyes. Like, I was so happy that they were back on stage, like happy making or like performing the music that they made all those years ago. So no matter who the vocalist is, I would still love to hear Hybrid Theory.
I would still go, and I think that they would be a headliner. Yeah. I'm just like, I think a little part in the back of my brain questions, like, is it going to feel the same? Because it's so hard when you change singers. And that's with any band. And like, hey, look, I'm not even saying that it is going to be bad or that I'm not giving them a chance. It's just there's that little part in the back of your brain that's like,
maybe. No, that's fair. I think it also weighs heavily on me that I've never seen them live. So this would be like the one time. But anyways.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones or you want to get in your number one?
I think that's that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we've talked
covered
enough. We can just kind of
I have no idea what your number one is.
Used in Love and Death.
Oh yeah, fuck.
I thought you're like, this is gonna be a lot harder. I'm like,
I thought we talked about this already for some reason. I'm just dumb.
You brought it up as yours.
I did,
like it's gonna be a lot higher, but I didn't mention it. The Used in Love and Death. That's the emo album for me. That was the start of it all. That was the reason why I wanted to grow out and cut
so
my
anticlimactic
hair.
For me.
It was just that was the album that started it all. So that's going to be, in my opinion, that should be the headlining album of the tour.
Interesting.
Not the tour of the festival.
I think it'll definitely be third or fourth on the main stage. Like towards the end, I mean.
It better well damn be.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many good records. It's so hard. I don't know how they're going to like separate the stages. Maybe they'll put all the pop punk records on like one stage and like the metalcore stage, like the Warped Tour would do like the Monster Energy stage and like whatever.
I think the Used is going to be like
I think that
they're going to be one of the last few bands that actually play. Like
I think it'll be them, then A Day to Remember's Homesick, then My Chem, then Fall Out Boy.
Probably. Yeah.
And the reason I say My Chem is because right now we're only guaranteed to get one album. Fall Out Boy haven't committed to an album, so they could play an entire 20-song set if they really wanted to.
And
so they might just close out the thing.
Neither of us put Fall Out Boy on our list unless you're gonna. Did you say what your number one is?
I didn't. My number one is obviously the Black Parade. We talked about it so much in the post-hardcore. No, what was it?
Which record?
Oh, we just did the My Chem songs. Episode, and basically my entire list was the Black Parade because it's a 10 out of 10 record. I've only been able to see My Chem once live. They played the biggest hits like Welcome to Black Parade and Famous Last Words, but to hear the entire thing in full, never heard Mama, never heard Sleep. So yeah, super excited for that one.
Cohesive album for you. Because that album, like you said, is
concept record from start to finish. You have to hear, like I want to hear it from front to back.
It's so much more impactful hearing the concept from start to finish.
Exactly.
When you listen to it from start to finish, there's all of those emotions that come out as it like takes you on a ride and a journey and it tells a story. So to be able to get that live is something that you just don't normally get at a regular concert.
Exactly.
So I understand that being there. That's another reason why I think I had it on my list. Compared to, maybe even putting it, Life's Not Out to Get You on.
Yeah. But the obvious one that we left off was Fall Out Boy because, they didn't commit to an album, but also they headlined All Your Friends Fest, which we were just at.
And here's something that's a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen Fall Out Boy on this tour, but they're kind of doing like an Eras tour.
Assuming they keep it the same.
If they do it the same for when we were young, it's they play about 2-3 hits from each album and they go from old stuff to new stuff. So while I loved seeing them at All Your Friends Fest, they were amazing. And
they put on a
week
show.
Or two later, me and my wife only listened to Fall Out Boy like nonstop. So like they're incredible, and I definitely will be seeing them again at All Your Friends Fest, but at when we were young. But because we had seen them already and they're not committing to an album,
it could just be the same thing over again that we just saw. So.
We don't know what we're gonna get from them.
Yeah. If they committed to From Under the Cork Tree in full, probably make my top 8.
I think so too. Yeah. And I think it's just that unknown, right? And once again, going back to the exclusivity of everyone else is playing an album, so you're only going to get this album, and this is the only chance you're gonna get it. Whereas with Fall Out Boy, if they're just gonna play their hits and go, like I can go and see them at any point of any tour and go and see their hits.
Yep.
But if they committed to, From Under the Cork Tree, they're probably never going to do that again. So it's kind of like what's going to happen. True. I'm going to see them. I'm excited to see them, but
I think they're going to be closing out the entire festival. So yeah, we're definitely going to catch their set.
I think My Chem's closing it out.
I don't think so. I just think that I don't think people realize how big Fall Out Boy is and how big of a pull they have. Like My Chem,
more of a mainstream appeal for sure. Because the last time they came to Toronto, there were people that I know that listened to Top 40 radio and Top 40 radio only. and they went to go see Fall Out Boy because they're like, oh, I love Fall Out Boy and all their hits that I hear on the radio.
Exactly. So I think they will get priority. It'll be interesting. I would love to have My Chem be the ultimate headliners because I think the Black Parade is like the emo album for me. So to cap out the emo festival would be kind of iconic. But
I think for this festival, it's just, even though Fall Out Boy is bigger, it's more appropriate to have them there. But you never know.
We'll see.
Last year, I felt like Blink was more appropriate, but Green Day's a bigger band. Technically mainstream wise.
That's basically where I'm pulling this from. Yeah. So
we'll see.
For this one, we're not going to do a combined date because this is pretty personal. And honestly, I think we shouted out pretty much every record that's going to be played on When We Were Young across our lists and the honorable mentions. So
no bad albums on here.
Yeah. So this is a good one.
All right. Well, let us know what albums you are most excited for if you are going to When We Were Young. If you're not going to When We Were Young, what album is the album that's keeping you up at night for whatever reason you can't go? What album is it that you really want to see from start to finish? Let us know in the comments on YouTube or in the comments on Spotify. And please remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you're listening. Thank you so much for listening to another episode.
We'll see you next week.